welcome back to Room 237, and I've got kind of a random review. I've done one or two uh, French films recently. I actually have a couple more that I want to do, but this is one that I came across on Netflix a couple nights ago that I have heard of, but had never actually seen until now. And it's a film from 2016, or at least it premiered at Cannes Film Festival in 2016. And it was directed by Julia Ducournau, if I pronounced that correctly. And this was her first feature-length film. She has another one on Hulu that came out more recently that I will be checking out after watching this. She's definitely a director that I will keep an eye out for. And it's her 2016 film Raw, which the French title is the French word for grave. I think raw works better. And it stars, I'm just going to pronounce these names as they're spelled. I'm sure I'm going to get them wrong. Garrett's Marillier, Ella Rumpf, and Raba Nayat Ufella. And it was written and directed by Julia Ducournau. Again, I probably butchered all those names, but this, along with her other film that I'll be checking out, which I think is called Titana, is the French film word for titanium. They're essentially character dramas, but mixed perfectly with horror films. And this one has a lot of coming of age to it as well. But also, even just watching this movie alone and then just hearing the premise of the other film, she has to be wildly influenced by David Cronenberg, because there's a lot of body horror involved. I think more so specifically with the Titanium film, but there is some with this as well. A lot of not fantastical body changes, or it's not like The Fly, but it's still kind of a horrific movie. And supposedly when this came out, it did cause a lot of controversy because of how graphic some of the bloody and violent well, it's not really a violent movie, but it's more gory, bloody scenes, and it's sexual scenes. And yes, it is a movie about cannibalism, or a movie that leads to cannibalism, but and even for how effective it is, it still feels very refined. I mean, it's not like a modern Chainsaw Massacre film. It's not like Hostel graphic or anything. Hostel's not even that graphic. It doesn't go all out as like a gore fest, but when those scenes are on screen, they're still done very effectively. And I'm not sure if this would fit into the elevated or artsy kind of horror category. I'm gonna assume it is. I mean, it's shot beautifully. It looks great. Very well acted. Very well written. And yeah, it does have some horrific content to it. It's not one of the most shocking films that I've ever seen. But there's also a lot of metaphor to it. And if I had a guess, or what seems obvious to me, is that it's a metaphor for not just going from adolescence to adulthood, and in this case, young girl to a woman. Sorry, I'm stuttering so much. Going from like a young teenager to being a woman, but it's presented in a way that, and I'm sure we've all known kids like this growing up. Kids who were sheltered from certain things in life, whether it be drinking, smoking, sex, any of that. Then they go to college where they're free from that. they experience it and then they can't get enough of it. They they become obsessed or addicted to it. I think this kind of takes that concept and runs with it, but it is mixed with just a good coming of age story as well. But also, I think it could also be a metaphor for self acceptance, self discovery, and even though it is more specifically, about a girl becoming a woman, I think the whole coming of age and sort of self discovery and self acceptance could work for any gender that watches this, which also, you also can tell this was written and directed by a woman because of how well that metaphor plays out with a female character. It Because I feel like if it was written by a man and directed by a man, or at the very least written, uh, it would either seem too preachy or pretentious or like not quite like he's knowing what he's talking about. I guess it feels more natural, I guess. And I could be wrong about the metaphors. That's what I got from it, but it's told very, very well. The music was done by Jim Williams, and the music, not so much that it sounded like it, but it kind of reminded me of It Follows, where it has this awesome sort of 80s synth kind of sound. And there are pieces of music throughout, but there's really just two or three scenes where the music is really at the forefront. And it happens very few times, but I think that helps exclamate those scenes even more, and it helps give the music a bit more of a presence. So I thought that was very effective as well. I do remember around the time this was probably being released or screened, I do remember seeing, I think it was on Facebook, some of the horror pages I have liked on there. There was a still, which is the shot of her in front of the fridge with the of uncooked chicken, which that's what it looked like. It might not have been because she did get salmonella or anything. And it was talking about this sick, disgusting movie that is making festival patrons sick. And again, this is not like a Human Centipede artsy, gross out movie. And by that, I mean Human Centipede 2. This is not like a Serbian film. This is not, no, it's not anything like that. I would actually say this is more artistic and effective than those films. But, the scenes where there is the cannibalism, I can see why someone might be squeamish because it is done in a very realistic and, pun intended, raw way. It is kind of grisly. It's not overly bloody. It's not, certainly not gratuitous at all. And it is just kind of very strategically placed. And it does kind of feel like a character study, say like Taxi Driver, where we see her go through all these developments. But I really did like the music. And French, French and Belgian film. And so yeah, was met with some controversy. Anyway, but it also won. I think this was going to be. Oh no, that was the her more recent film that was going to be picked for the international category at the Oscars. And also, this does look and feel like something that could have been released by IFC or A24. It was actually released by Wild Bunch and Focus Features or Focus World because it's an international film. But so yeah, basically the story is you have this girl named Justine, who's played by Garrett's Marillier. I'm sorry about the name. Who all her life, her parents have been very strict vegetarians, making sure she is. I mean, it opens up with them, I think, at a truck stop. Uh, she's eating whatever she's eating, and then her parents see like a meatball or something, and they make her spit it out or throw it away. But they're bringing her to this uh, a veterinary college, same one her older sister went to, the same one they went to, and it pretty much takes place during, I think, Pledge Week. I think it stays within Pledge Week, where she's like, the first thing the elders, as they call themselves, do is they throw all the mattresses and belongings of the rookies out the window. They pour animal blood on them when they're wearing their scrubs or their lab coats, and they make them line up to eat raw rabbit kidneys, which Justine initially refuses to do, but her elder sister, was it Alex or Alexis? Alexia. And she's played by Ella Rump, which she reminded me sort of a cross between Fairuza Balk in The Craft and Alexandria Daddario with short hair. She pretty much forces it into Justine's mouth. At first, she breaks out in these crazy rashes, which also, whoever did the makeup did a very good job with this film. It's sporadic and few, but it deserves a mention. Breaks out in rashes, but then she becomes obsessed with meat. And at first, it's small stuff, like she steals an extra Salisbury steak, puts it in her lab coat at lunch. Of course, she gets caught. She's found by her roommate late at night in front of the fridge, just scouring for meat. At which case, she eats. Again, I thought it was raw chicken, but it could have been raw pork. Excuse me. Which her roommate, Adrian, who I think he was played by Rama Nayat Ufella. He's gay, but Justine begins having these feelings for him. I don't know if it goes deeper than like lustful feelings of lust and sexual attraction, but she really likes him. And then eventually Alexia also starts hanging out with him, but the film really comes to a head where, and also we see the transition of her going from this very shy, virginal, naive, mousy girl, like who even like she dresses very proper, and yeah, they are forced to wear like hot nightclub clothes. That's kind of the dress code that the rookies get enforced, and it does kind of turn into those sort of good girl gone bad that we've seen a bunch of times in movies. I don't think I've really seen any, to be honest. I know when I was in school, a lot of girls watched a movie called 13, but I never saw it. And yeah, by the end of the movie, she looks like a partied out nightclub girl. But she really wants to impress Adrian, and so her sister Alexia has her over and tries to sexy her up a bit with a makeover. There's a bit of an accident with a bikini wax where she can't get the wax off, so she has to cut it. Justine freaks out, kicks her hand away, but in the struggle, Alexia cut her own finger off with a pair of scissors, passes out due to blood loss. And this is my favorite scene uh, from the entire film. One, I don't remember if this is one of the ones that has that awesome sort of It Follows uh, score to it, but she calls 911. They tell her to put it on ice. She goes over to the fridge. There's no ice, but she's looking at it and like she tries to catch the blood and drink it. Then she just starts sniffing it. It first just taking like little nibbles, and then she actually starts eating it like a chicken wing. Like you see her just sucking the blood out of it. Eventually gets down to the bone. She's like just sucking on the bone. And it just keeps building up and it keeps going. And in the background, out of focus, you see Alexia just kind of sit up. You know, kind of like that scene in Halloween or the ending to the first Saw. And she looks over, just tears running, just looking at her in horror. Now, I guess I could say spoilers here. Well, because it can go a bunch of different ways. I certainly didn't know which way it was gonna go, but I definitely do recommend this movie. If you're one of those people that can't watch a movie with subtitles, one, you should get over that because there are great films that happen to be foreign. But it is on Netflix. Go check it out. Again, shot wonderfully. Great cinematography, especially just the way it goes through the corridors and of the college. And there's a lot of wide shots outside. There are some slow motion parts. Like eventually, I will say, Justine does hook up with Adrian, and it is this long scene in slow motion, and it just shows how primal they are. Like she's losing her virginity, but it's like she's in this very savage primal state where she even ends up biting her own arm, I guess, to satisfy those needs. And yes, this would go under the elevated or intellectual, artistic, metaphorical horror films. But I think it's done very well. It doesn't feel pretentious or preachy. It's taking a certain kind of story. It has a metaphor. It's telling the story with that metaphor, and it does it very well in a very natural way, and one that might be more specific to, like, you know, written directed by a woman. It's about a girl. You know, it's about reaching a womanhood, but where it's done so well and so naturally, I think it could work for anyone to watch it. But I was surprised by one part towards the end. And so I'm going to say spoilers here. I'm not going to put the screen up, but I really did enjoy this film. And definitely, it definitely makes me want to check this director's other film out that's on Hulu and continue to look out for her films. She's definitely one to keep an eye out for. So, and eventually we do kind of see her go downhill. I mean, she doesn't really seem to be fighting it. The only time she really does is we're kind of foreshadowed something in the beginning when I think it's when they're on the way. Actually, I think it opens up with the car accident, but also when Justine and Adrian go out to something and come back, they take the bus, there's another car accident. We see after Alexia loses her finger, tells her parents that her dog ate it, and then they put the dog down. They She takes Justine to talk to her out by the side of the road, and when a car comes, Alexia runs in front of him, causing an accident so that she can feast on their flesh. And I guess this is Alexia's way of telling her that she's the same, but Justine isn't having any of it. It's almost like she's fighting it, or she's more upset seeing someone else do it. So she goes back to school. And then they have to operate on these dogs. And she gets Alexia's dog, and she just cuts through it like it's nothing. There is this one paint party. Like, they throw blue all over her. There's yellow on this other kid. They throw him in a closet, tell him to get frisky till they're both green. And she's kind of put off by him at first, but then they go to kiss more. And then we hear a scream, and he comes out with his lip all bloody. She bit him. And, she's also upset about Alexia also spending time with Adrian. Which, I've heard some people say that Alexia is jealous that she finds friendship in someone else other than Alexia, but I didn't really get that. There is a very long scene, I think, when she's planning on seducing Adrian, when she's dancing in front of a mirror, puts lipstick on. It's this very long scene of her just like dancing in front of the camera, like up kissing the camera. Normally I would say, okay, this scene's kind of long, didn't really need it, but I think it's trying to show just that thing that I think everyone has done when they grow up, trying to act something out to pump themselves up in front of the mirror. Plus, it was a great moment for the actress. But eventually, things get worse. She goes to a party. And at this point, I thought she was really upset with the whole thing. Like, she's trying to fight it. She doesn't like who she's becoming. And maybe that is the case. But I think she took some drug, or she's really wasted. And Alexia brings her into the morgue, because I think they go to a nearby hospital for parties also. I could be wrong, unless it's like a doctor and veterinary college. But she brings her into the morgue, they pull a body out, and then the next day, people are acting kind of weird towards her. And then Adrian pulls her aside, shows her a video where at that party, there's like a swarm of people in the morgue, and Alexia is like holding this dead guy's arm, kind of being like, come on, Justine, come on, and pulling it back. And she's wasted on the floor, just like trying to bite the hand as it's like near her before it gets pulled away. She just has this bestial, primal look on her face. So then she goes to fight. She goes to fight Alexia, and I mean, Alexia bites a chunk out of her cheek. She bites part of Alexia, like I think it was her arm. But then they make up. And then the next day, and this part I didn't see coming, and I thought it was played out very well. She wakes up next to Adrian, who's facing her, and you can tell she's in love. She touches his face, and she's very happy, but he's not waking up. She pulls her hand out from the blanket. It's covered in blood, kind of like a Godfather moment with the horse. Pulls the blanket back, and his whole thigh is eaten down to the bone. And again, practical effects, looks great. and, and she's trying to piece it together because she doesn't remember doing that to him. She notices there's no blood, like on her teeth or her mouth. Then she notices a hole in his back, which in the beginning of the film, when they're being brought out at the beginning of their hazing, Adrian gives her a ski pole of her protection. She sees the ski pole on the floor, and she knows someone killed him. But in the other room, Alexia is sitting there, near catatonic, I guess playing video games. And just non-responsive. Blood all over her, so we get that she did it. Now, whether she did it out of jealousy or her own impulses and her own desires, again, maybe jealousy was the thing. That's just not what I got from it. And I think Justine was willing to kill her there, but then she held back. She takes Alexia into the shower, cleans her up. And then we see that Alexia is in prison. She was sentenced for Adrian's death, but we still see that they're close. I mean, when they go to leave, like Justine puts her scarred cheek against the glass, Alexia kisses it. And then this I didn't see as well, but I think kind of goes along with the metaphor of if you shelter your kids too much from certain aspects, especially sex, which I think more specifically, not just sheltering them from smoking or drinking or partying or sex, I think sex specifically. You shelter them too much, and then they grow up and they move away. They gain independence, they experience it for the first time, and then they just go wild. Justine's back at home. She's having a meal with her parents. Her mom goes in the other room, and we see that her father has a cleft palate. Now, I didn't think anything of this throughout the film, but during this conversation, I was starting to think, well, it doesn't look like natural. It looks like, like a scar that healed. He starts talking about how, her mother didn't have any friends in high school. He was her first boyfriend. He realized there was something when they had their first kiss and she bit him. And then, he just undoes his shirt and shows all these scars. I mean, it almost looks like a Freddy's chest, just with how scarred it is. Bite marks and whatever. It pretty much says, I hope you learn to find a way to deal with it too. Meaning, I guess the way their mother deals with it is she takes a chunk out of him sometimes, or special occasions, or during sex. And, tells her, like, we try to keep it from you. It's out of the bag now. Hopefully, you find a better way to deal with it than your sister did. But he does say, I know it's not your fault or your sister's fault. So it's kind of treating cannibalism like that it's this hereditary thing. But again, I think that just more so fits the metaphor of, we tried hiding it from you, but you experienced it. Now you're going to go crazy for it. Along with the metaphor of going from, coming of age, going from adolescent to adulthood, more specifically girl to womanhood. And she does lose her virginity at one point in the film during that slow motion sequence. That is very well shot. It is very effective because it is this gradual thing where she does get more bestial and primal looking as it goes on. Again, ending with her biting her own arm. And this is something that's come up a few times. I mean, since I've been going through these more independent films, especially like IFC, A24, like these more uh, intellectual films, these first time female directors have done some of the best horror films I've seen, like of modern horror. I mean, there's this. I think The Wind was one. I know there's been like three or four, but they've really impressed me. I think A Little Joe. I don't know if that was a debut, but that was one as well. This might be the best of all those, but yeah, I found this film to be very effective. The metaphors worked. The acting was great, even without being an all-out blood-soaked gore fest. It was still just as effective, probably even more so. Uh, but yeah, I really enjoyed it, and really makes me excited to see her newer film, Titana, I think it's called. Again, the French word for titanium, which is on Hulu, and I will be watching. So, I know I've gone back and forth on saying this, but this is the last week I will be in this setting. I actually can't be in here after the end of this week. So, that's why there's been the lack of videos. I've been trying to get everything situated and done, and I've been very tired lately. That's probably why I'm stuttering so much, kind of out of it. But still trying to get some videos to you as I can. I have seen a number of movies that I enjoyed that is something I haven't, that I've wanted to make videos for you. I mean, there's a Rent-A-Pal, which I loved. We Need to Do Something, which kind of hit and miss, but not terrible. Safer at Home, which I was actually very impressed by, because that's a gimmick I don't care for. Curse of La Llorona, which is going to be a rant, but see, I've seen plenty of movies still. I just haven't had time to make the videos, so I'm going to try to get those out to you. But anyway, so this was for the French film Raw. I really enjoyed it. Very effective film, and I highly recommend it. Thank you for watching.